I'm 22 years old, and my name is Mary. My parents and my 15-year-old younger sister, Sophia, live with me. In order to make ends meet, Mom and Dad put in a lot of overtime at the nearby plant. However, things weren't always this way. We were distinct individuals with different lives when I was growing up. I used to sit and dream about my future in our lovely two-story home with a wraparound porch, where my parents had a prosperous business. On family game nights, I still recall the sound of Dad's laughter reverberating through our large living room and the scent of Mom's garden roses. It was like seeing dominoes fall once the business began to crumble when I was 17. We were suddenly drowning in debt after one poor month followed by another. First, we lost the house. I recall watching Sophia skip down the driveway on the day we moved out, totally unaware that we would not be returning. At the age of 10, she was too young to comprehend why we had to move from our lovely home to a little rented apartment. After school, I began working part-time at Joe's Cafe, where I served sandwiches and coffee to guests who would frequently attend dinner parties at our house. We needed every dime, but I didn't miss the irony. Both parents obtained employment at the plant, but their income was insufficient to cover their daily costs and any outstanding business debts. Sophia was living in a completely different world from mine, while I was learning to survive on instant noodles and clothes from the junk store. She's too young to understand. Mom and Dad would say when she would return from school with a never-ending list of demands, including lavish birthday parties, designer clothes, and new phones. We don't want her to feel different from her friends. But is this something we can afford? As I saw them add yet another pricey purchase to their already fully loaded credit card, I would question. Mom would remark, "Don't worry about it, Mary," while stroking Sophia's hair. She just needs time to adjust. However, how could Sophia cope with something she was unaware of? She lived as though nothing had changed while I picked up extra shifts and collected pennies. It was like winning the jackpot when I was awarded that college scholarship. The day the acceptance letter arrived is still fresh in my mind. Even Sophia appeared impressed, but she immediately returned to playing with her new iPad after Mom and Dad gave me hugs. Dad responded, "You've always been the smart one," with pride shining in his eyes. It was one of the few times I truly felt like I was the center of attention, rather than my sister. Although challenging, college was rewarding. I praised my lucky stars for the scholarship that allowed me to pursue my study, while my peers grumbled about their student loans. In the hopes of helping my parents restore what they had lost, I pursued a degree in business administration. I had a job at Thompson and Associates, one of the larger companies in our tiny town, lined up the day I finished. The pay was good, not great, but sufficient to have a significant impact on my family. I realized my parents needed assistance with those endless debts, so I made the decision to stay at home, in part to save money. But it was not all that easy. To help with family finances, I stopped going shopping and eating out, but my sister's luxurious lifestyle only appeared to get more costly. After a particularly trying day at work, I was worn out when I got home one evening. My stomach was rumbling. I had foregone lunch in order to complete a task. I opened our refrigerator to discover a half-empty carton of milk and condiments. "Mom, what's for dinner?" I called out, already knowing I wouldn't like the answer. "Oh, honey, we're a bit short this week," she replied from the living room. "Maybe we could order pizza." That's when Sophia bounced down the stairs, wearing what looked like a brand new designer jacket. The price tag was still attached, $300. "Where did that jacket come from?" I asked, my voice tight with barely contained anger. "Oh, isn't it cute?" Sophia twirled around. "Melissa and Ashley all have one, and Mom said I could get it too." "Mom, are you serious?" I turned to face her. We have no food in the house, but Sophia needs another jacket. Mary, please, Mom sighed, using that patronizing tone I'd grown to hate. Sophia has to keep up appearances at school. You know how teenagers are. Yeah, Mary, Sophia chimed in, rolling her eyes. You don't understand what it's like. All my friends have the newest everything. Do you know how embarrassing it is when they show up with new phones and clothes, and I'm the only one who doesn't have them? I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell her about real embarrassment, like having to wear the same outfit to work multiple times a week, because all my money went to paying off family debts. Instead, I just stood there, watching Sophia admire herself in the hallway mirror while my stomach growled. We need to talk about priorities. I tried again, addressing my parents. We can't keep living like this. Sophia needs to understand. Dad cut me off, not even looking up from his newspaper. You know how cruel kids can be at her school. All those rich girls with their fancy things. I gave up trying to argue. How could I compete with Sophia's tears and my parents' endless excuses? While I tracked every penny I spent, my sister's friends kept raising the bar with their expensive gadgets and designer clothes, and my parents kept trying to help her clear it, even if it meant going hungry. It started with $11,000. I kept the cash in my wallet, tucked behind my driver's license, my emergency fund that I'd been building up slowly, dollar by dollar. One morning, I opened my wallet to add another $50 from my latest paycheck, and it was gone. Just gone. My hand shook as I emptied my wallet onto my bed, checking every compartment twice, 3 times. But deep down, I already knew. I'd seen Sophia eyeing my wallet the day before when I'd left it on the kitchen counter while cooking dinner. Sophia, I stormed into her room without knocking. Did you take money from my wallet? She looked up from her phone, her eyes wide with innocence. What? No. How could you even think that? $1,000 is missing, and you're the only one who. I couldn't believe it. She burst into tears, real tears that streamed down her face and made her mascara run. How dare you accuse me of stealing? I'm your sister. Her sobs brought Mom running. What's going on here? Mary thinks I stole money from her, Sophia wailed, throwing herself into Mom's arms. She hates me. She's always hated me because you love me more. Mom gave me that disappointed look I'd grown so familiar with. How could you accuse your sister like that? I stood there watching Sophia's performance, and for a moment, I actually started to doubt myself. Maybe I had misplaced the money. Maybe I'd spent it and forgotten. Maybe someone at work had taken it. After that, I switched to using my card exclusively. No more cash, no more questions about missing money. Problem solved, or so I thought. Then came the dress. I was doing laundry when Sophia breezed through the front door, wearing what looked like a Valentino, the kind of dress that costs more than our monthly rent. Where did that come from? I demanded, my hands full of damp clothes. Oh, this old thing. She twirled, the fabric swishing around her legs. I've had it forever. Mom and Dad. I called out, did you buy Sophia another expensive dress? They both looked confused. Dad frowned. No, we didn't buy any dress. That's when the alarm bells really started ringing. Where was a 15-year-old getting designer clothes? The possibilities made my blood run cold. Was she shoplifting? Had she fallen in with a bad crowd? Was she selling drugs? I sat at my desk that night, scenarios running through my head, each worse than the last. Then I remembered my card. With trembling fingers, I logged into my online banking and requested a detailed statement for the past month. The statement arrived in my email 2 days later. 3 transactions jumped out at me. $895 at Nordstrom, $750 at Saks Fifth Avenue, $1,200 at Neiman Marcus. Each purchase included itemized details: a size 4 cocktail dress, a medium blouse, size 6 shoes. Sophia's sizes, Sophia's favorite brands, Sophia's new clothes. My stomach lurched. $3,000. My sister hadn't just stolen from my wallet. She'd been using my card all along. The new dress wasn't from some shady source. It was bought with my own money, right under my nose. I found Sophia in her room, trying on one of her new outfits. My new outfits, technically, since I paid for them. "Nice dress," I said, leaning against the doorframe. "Neiman Marcus, right. About $1,200. She froze mid-twirl, but only for a second. "What are you talking about?" "Cut the act, Sophia. I have the credit card statements right here." I held up the papers. 3 shopping sprees. $3,000. All in your size. All your favorite stores. "You're crazy," she shot back, but her voice wavered slightly. "I didn't use your card." "Really? Should we call the stores? I'm sure their security cameras have caught some interesting footage." "Want to see yourself shopping with my card?" Sophia's face paled for a moment, but she quickly recovered. "Whatever. You can't prove anything." "Mom, Dad," I called out. "Family meeting now." They gathered in the living room. Dad's still in his work clothes, Mom wiping her hands on a dish towel. I spread the bank statements on the coffee table. "Look at these," I said, pointing to the transactions. "Sophia's been using my credit card. $3,000 worth of clothes." "Mary, that's a serious accusation." Dad frowned, adjusting his glasses. "Are you sure you didn't just forget?" "Forget spending $3,000 on clothes in Sophia's exact size." I interrupted. "Really, Dad?" Mom picked up the statements, squinting at the itemized list. "Well, even if, and I'm not saying she did it, but even if Sophia did use your card, she's going through a difficult age." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Are you serious right now?" "Teenagers do silly things sometimes," Mom continued, patting Sophia's hand. "It's just part of growing up. Remember when you were her age." "When I was her age, I wasn't stealing thousands of dollars from my family." I exploded. "Don't be so dramatic, Mary," Mom sighed. "If it really was Sophia, and we're not saying it was, but if it was, why don't we just consider it an early birthday present?" I stared at my mother in disbelief. "An early birthday present? She stole from me. She committed credit card fraud." "Now you're just trying to make it sound worse than it is." Mom waved her hand dismissively. "Sophia is going through a transitional period. Her friends all have nice things, but she's trying to fit in. You should be more understanding." Understanding? I felt like I was losing my mind. She stole $3,000 from me. Dad finally spoke up. "Your mother's right. You're making too big a deal out of this. Just let it go." Sophia sat there the whole time, a small smirk playing at the corners of her mouth. She knew she'd won. She always won. "You don't understand what you're doing," I shouted, my voice hoarse with frustration. "This isn't about the money anymore. If Sophia is stealing from family now, what's next? She could end up in serious trouble." "There it is." Dad shook his head. "You're jealous. You've always been jealous of your sister." I laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. "Jealous of what?" "Of being a thief. Of being spoiled rotten." "See?" Mom gestured at me. "This is exactly what jealousy looks like. You can't stand that we give Sophia nice things." That night, I couldn't stay in that house another minute. The walls felt like they were closing in on me, and every glance from my family felt like another betrayal. I grabbed my keys and drove through the darkening streets, not really having a destination in mind. Eventually, I found myself outside Jenny's apartment building. She'd been my closest friend since we started working together, and right then I desperately needed someone who could see the situation clearly. Jenny's apartment always felt like a sanctuary. She listened without judgment as I recounted the whole miserable story: the stolen money, the credit card fraud, my parents' inexcusable response. The wine she poured helped take the edge off my anger, but it couldn't erase the hurt of my family's betrayal. "This is insane," she said when I finished. "Your sister needs a wake-up call before she gets herself into real trouble." "I've tried everything," I sighed. "They just keep making excuses for her." Jenny was quiet for a moment, swirling her wine. "You know, my uncle likes a cop. He could maybe help." I looked up. "What do you mean?" "He could pay your sister a visit. You know, give her a good scare. Make her understand this isn't a game. He's done it before for other families. Sometimes kids just need to see how serious this could get." The plan took shape over the next 2 days. It had to look authentic. Sophia needed to believe she was facing real consequences for her actions. We arranged everything carefully, timing it for dinner when the whole family would be together. That evening, we sat around our dinner table as if it were any other night. The lasagna Mom had made filled the house with a familiar aroma that would normally have been comforting, but I could barely touch my food, knowing what was coming. Sophia dominated the conversation, as usual, completely unaware that her world was about to shift. "I'll get it." Sophia bounced up when the doorbell rang, probably expecting one of her friends. The sight of Officer Thompson standing on our front porch, his uniform crisp and official, his badge catching the light of the porch lamp, had an immediate effect. Sophia's face went white. She stumbled backward, nearly tripping over her own feet. "What's going on?" Mom rushed to the door, Dad right behind her. "I called them," I said, standing up from the table, my voice steady despite my pounding heart. "Someone stole $3,000 from my credit card. I want to find out who did it." Officer Thompson stood in our living room, his presence filling the space with uncomfortable tension. Sophia had collapsed onto the couch, tears already streaming down her face. Our parents hovered nearby, looking confused and worried. "Miss Sophia," Officer Thompson began, his voice stern but professional, "we have substantial evidence of credit card fraud committed from this address. The transaction records, security footage from the stores, and witness statements all point to your involvement." Sophia's sobs grew louder, but he continued undeterred. "I see cases like this before. Good kids from good families who thought they could get away with just a little theft. Do you know where most of them ended up?" He paused, letting the question hang in the air. Sophia shook her head slightly, mascara running down her cheeks. "I remember this one girl, about your age, started with stealing from her family, just like you. Thought it wasn't a big deal. Last month, I had to arrest her for grand larceny. She's facing real jail time now." He leaned forward slightly. "Is that what you want for yourself?" Sophia's mom tried to interrupt, but Officer Thompson held up his hand. "Ma'am, your daughter needs to understand the severity of her actions. Credit card fraud is a serious crime. Right now, we can handle this within the family, if the money is returned and this behavior stops immediately. But if it continues..." He let the threat hang in the air. I watched from the doorway as my sister crumbled under the weight of her actions, finally facing real consequences. When Officer Thompson left, I expected my parents to finally see the situation clearly. Maybe they'd understand why I'd been so worried about Sophia's behavior. I couldn't have been more wrong. The moment the door closed behind him, Mom whirled on me with a fury I'd never seen before. "How dare you?" she screamed, her face contorted with rage. "How the hell dare you bring the police into this house?" I stepped back, shocked by her language. Mom never swore. She's 15 years old. She continued, her voice rising hysterically. "She's a child, and you set the police on her. What kind of monster are you?" I was trying to help her, I protested. "You weren't trying to help anyone." Mom cut me off. "You're just jealous. You've always been jealous of Sophia. You're nothing but a selfish, ungrateful piece of trash." Dad, who had been silent until now, stepped forward. His voice was quiet but ice cold. Get out of this house. You're no daughter of mine. No daughter of mine would do this to her sister." I looked between them. My mother's face twisted with rage, my father's cold dismissal, Sophia's triumphant smirk barely hidden behind her tears. And suddenly, I felt very calm. The next morning, I packed my life into boxes and suitcases. It's amazing how 17 years of memories can fit into such a small space. Each item I packed reminded me of something. My high school graduation photo, the mug I used every morning for coffee, the blanket Mom had given me for Christmas years ago. I left that blanket behind. Sophia watched from her doorway as I carried boxes to my car. She didn't offer to help, and I didn't ask. Mom and Dad had already left for work, neither of them saying goodbye. The silence in the house was deafening. Finding an apartment wasn't difficult. My job at Thompson & Associates paid well enough that I could afford a small one-bedroom place across town. It wasn't much, but it was mine. No stolen credit cards, no family drama, no constant guilt trips, just quiet. I spent that first month creating a new normal. I bought some secondhand furniture, figured out which grocery store had the best prices, and learned which neighbors would smile back when I said good morning. It wasn't perfect, but it was peaceful. Then one ordinary Tuesday evening, my phone lit up with Mom's number. "Mary," her voice was softer than the last time we'd spoken. "Your father and I have been talking. We forgive you for what happened." I almost laughed at the absurdity of it. They forgave me. "We want you to come home," she continued, "and well, we need your help with the loan payment this month. Things have been tight since you left." The familiar weight of guilt and obligation tried to settle on my shoulders, but this time I shrugged it off. "No," I said simply. "You don't get to humiliate me, kick me out, call me trash, and then ask for my money. I'm done." "Mary, please." I hung up and blocked her number. Then I blocked Dad's number and Sophia's. It felt both terrible and liberating. The emails started next, urgent messages about overdue payments and financial struggles. I blocked those too. Then came the social media messages from old family friends, distant relatives, anyone they could recruit to their cause. Each one talked about family obligation and forgiveness, each one asking for money. I blocked them all. They showed up at my office building on a Wednesday morning. I watched from my third-floor window as they stood in the lobby arguing with security. I'd already warned the guards about them, asked them not to let my family up. Dad looked older than I remembered, his shoulders hunched under the weight of their financial troubles. Mom was crying, making a scene, classic Mom. I turned away from the window and went back to my desk. There were contracts to review, meetings to attend, a life to live. A life that was finally completely my own. 6 months have passed since I last spoke to my family. My small apartment has become a real home now, filled with plants, books, and a peace I never knew I needed. Sometimes when I'm curled up on my second-hand couch with a cup of tea, watching the sunset through my living room window, I wonder how they're doing. Jenny keeps me updated, even though I've never asked her to. She still lives in our area and runs into my family occasionally. Last week, she told me Dad has taken a second job at the hardware store, working evenings and weekends. The image of my father, already worn down from years at the factory, now spending his nights stocking shelves, sits heavy in my chest. Now he's working himself to exhaustion because they can't make ends meet without my help. The bank is apparently working with them on restructuring their loans. Mom's been making tearful visits to the branch office, playing the same sympathy card she used to use on me. But banks don't care about crying mothers or teenage daughters who need designer clothes. They just want their money. And my parents are running out of options. Their standard of living has dropped significantly since I left. No more shopping sprees for Sophia, no more expensive gadgets or designer clothes. Jenny says she saw my sister wearing the same outfit twice in 1 week, something that would have been unthinkable 6 months ago. Part of me hopes this is teaching her the lesson my parents never could, but I'm not optimistic. Guilt can occasionally creep in, generally late at night when everything seems too peaceful. I imagine my father, whose hands are callous from years of working in the factory, keeping inventory at the hardware shop rather than relaxing. I think about Mom, who is still my mother in spite of everything. Even Sophia, who is 16 years old and still more childlike than adult due to years of parental support, comes to mind. However, I then recall the evening I was expelled. I recall Sophia grinning behind her crocodile tears, Dad rejecting me, and Mom calling me garbage. After years of giving my all, I recall being treated more like an ATM than a daughter. The shame fades and is replaced with a will to defend the tranquility I've at last discovered. Friends advise me to attempt to make amends since, in the end, family is family. They fail to realize that both parties must accept responsibility for what went wrong in order for reconciliation to occur. My parents continue to believe they've done nothing improper. All they want is the return of their human ATM. Other from missing her limitless spending money, Sophia hasn't likely thought twice about me. Perhaps things will change in the future. Perhaps Dad would come to the conclusion that protecting Sophia had more negative effects than positive ones. Perhaps Mom will realize that credit card bills and fancy labels aren't the right way to gauge love. Perhaps Sophia will mature and see what she lost when she violated my confidence. Perhaps they won't miss me for my salary, but rather for me. I'm creating my own life in the meantime. Last month, I received a promotion at work. Rather than renting a place, I'm considering buying one. Without the burden of family responsibilities weighing me down, I'm discovering who I am. I'm learning that even when you miss someone, you may still decide that you're better off without them.